Welcome to the channel, guys. If you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button down underneath. If you don't like it, then hit the thumbs down button. It doesn't worry me. You just make sure you interact with this video, write some comments, write some chat in the chat panel, ask me some questions. Okay, we are doing this lesson because Sydney is in another lockdown, and a lot of our students have asked me to teach them something other than coding. So this is one of my favorite pastimes, flying a virtual airplane, and so I thought I'd teach you a little bit about automated flying using the Autopilot system. We're in an Airbus A320 today, which is one of the most popular and one of the well, it is the world's fastest selling passenger airliner because it is such a great airplane and it flies really easily. So it is about time. So, like I said again, hello everyone. Today we're going to learn about autopilot and how an aeroplane works. Before we go any further, please make sure that you fasten your seatbelts and move your seats back into the upright position because we're about to take off. And once we are in the air, I'm going to press a little button on my side stick here. And this button is going to turn on the autopilot, and then you're going to see me move my hands away from the controls, and then the plane is going to fly itself. Once the plane is starting to fly itself, we are going to go through all the different components and the background and the sciences behind the autopilot system. Okay, so let's take off. Let's go. All right. So here, gotta make sure that I've already got clearance. Good. Disengage my parking brake. All right, and let's throttle up. Going past 160 knots. Slight drift up there. There's a bit of a storm here in Osaka today. You can see the lightning. Well, we have just taken off successfully. Alright, going to move my landing gear up. And then I'm going to press the autopilot button. And now you see, I have now taken my hands off the controls and the plane is starting to fly itself. There you go. You see how my hands are now off the side stick and the throttle. Whoop, I'm going to move my throttle back down to this lower level. Good. Looks like the plane is now flying itself pretty well. So Osaka International Airport is down towards our right. In fact, this is what it would look like if you were in the passenger seat of this part of the plane. Now look carefully on this wing. You see how there's a little bit of extension on this wing? This is called a flap. So what we're going to do is we're going to reduce the flap and make it more aerodynamic so that we can fly faster. Okay, so watch this. Going to press a button, and then this wing is going to hug itself closer to the rest of the structure of the wing. Excellent. Okay, All right, looks like the plane is now heading in the right direction. Let's look out the other side of the airplane. Yep, it's completely foggy because we are using a simulator, which means that the plane is actually flying in real life weather. So like I said, the plane is flying in real life weather, but that's okay because it is a simulation. I can turn off the weather so that we can see the ground a little bit more clearly later on as we go through the flight, so that we can fly past Mount Fuji and have a really close look at that volcano. And also we're going to be able to get a clearer view of Tokyo. All right, so flight traffic has just asked me to do something. Traffic control can request that you increase or decrease your flight altitude. And in order to do that, we are going to do that with the autopilot system. So let me show you how that's done. All right, first of all, we're going to check what my air traffic controller asked me to do. Climb and maintain 9,000 feet. Oh no, that's me. 9,000 feet. So if I need to fly 9,000 feet, I look over here. This is the autopilot system. Okay. So I'm just going to do it first, and then I'm going to walk through all the different parts of the system. Okay. Hold on. Okay, so we are now climbing to the right height. So despite the name, Autopilot does not actually take full control of the aircraft. Sorry, I was just listening to what the air traffic controller was saying. So in fact, every time the air traffic controller requests that I change my flight level or my altitude, I need to interfere and change the settings that I have dialed into my autopilot system. All right. So for example, today we're going to fly from Osaka to Tokyo. And as you'll see, the autopilot is now taking control of part of the journey. And this saves the pilot from having his or her hands on the controls the entire trip. So you can imagine if I was flying from Sydney to London, for example, on a really big 747, and it's going to take 25 hours or 28 hours to fly all the way across the world, the pilot's not going to have to put their hands on the controls for the entire trip if they have dialed in their autopilot settings correctly. So now that we're going to move into cruising altitude, I'm going to show you how small adjustments to the autopilot system can make the plane change the way that it's moving without having me to touch these flight controls. So air traffic control has just asked me to move to a higher altitude. So let's see how I do that. Whoops. Whoa. So here, let's first of all check the air traffic control. It's asking me to move to 17,000 feet. So here, in the autopilot system, this is where I change my altitude. So I rotate the knob towards the right to make it from 9,000 feet all the way up to 17,000 feet. So here, I'm going to rotate 1, 2, all the way up to 17,000 feet, and then I give it a press. And now the plane is going to start moving to 17,000 feet. How do I know what the height of the airplane is? Well, let's have a look over here. Whoops. Whoa. So over here we have our altimeter. Right now we're at 9,600 feet, and you see it's climbing up to 17,000 feet. So 17,000 feet over here in the light blue, that is my, my setting for my autopilot system. And this green reading is my current altitude. Okay. See if we got any questions and anything in the chat so far. Cool. So this program is called Flight Simulator. So it's a Microsoft program. Welcome Evan, welcome Nochan, welcome Vibing Hours. All right. Feel free to enter any questions that you want in the chat, okay? All right. Let us continue talking about the autopilot system. And every now and again, I might take a little bit of a break to change the autopilot settings depending on what my flight controller is asking. Because just like a real airplane, someone from an airport will radio in and say you have to change your path to this or that to avoid hitting other planes or to avoid certain weather systems. Okay? So here we're trying to climb to 17,000 feet, but our final cruising altitude is going to be 20,000 feet, or what they call what pilots will call flight level 20, which is 20,000 feet. Flight level 30 is 30,000 feet. So it's just the way that they name these heights. So let's have a look on the outside here. Lots of cloud cover. Can't see much of the ground yet, but that's okay, because like I said, we will turn off the clouds later on as we get closer to Mount Fuji so that we get a clear look at Mount Fuji. So think of autopilot. Let's have a look at, make sure that everyone can see me. So think of autopilot more like cruise control in a car, okay? And just like in cruise control, if you use autopilot incorrectly, it can cause an accident. For this reason, autopilot is not designed for people who don't know how to fly an airplane. So it's not supposed to replace having a pilot. It's only supposed to be there to assist the pilot. Okay? So the first thing a pilot does when they are planning to use autopilot is that they are going to plan the trip by entering the route into a computer. So before we started this trip, we already entered the route into our computer. I'll just show you what that looks like. All right, here we are. So as you can see, we started flying from over this direction, right? From way over that side. But then there are a whole bunch of these weird letters. Okay, so the instructor has just asked me to go to flight level 200. So I'll just go back into my airplane to make sure that I can change it to flight level 200. So you can notice that I'm not even touching my controls right now. All I have to do is adjust the knob, hit the button, and now my plane is going to slowly climb to that altitude. All right, let's get back to where we were before. Okay, so the route from Osaka to Tokyo is already entered into our Airbus A320's computer today. And for most aeroplanes, the autopilot system is positioned in that middle part of the dashboard where I was showing you before. Let's have a look back on the dashboard. Over here. So for most airplanes, there are a few different dials and knobs that control the speed. So here we have the speed. Here we have the heading. Here is the altitude, which we were changing before. And then here is the vertical speed of the airplane. The vertical speed of the airplane is how fast it is moving up and down. Okay, so sometimes if you want to move it faster to change its altitude faster, then you would increase the speed of this knob here. So does anyone have any questions so far before we go into the rest of the autopilot system? Going okay? What was the box called again? So that box was just a map, right? But it had all of our waypoints entered in already. That's a good question, Ryan. Thanks very much for asking that. Why is the fuel low? Excellent question, Evan. So I have entered the only enough fuel to make it to Tokyo only. And that doesn't require a lot of fuel because it's only a 1 hour trip. But if you wanted to fly further, then you would add more fuel. If you have too much fuel, then it can make your aircraft a bit heavier and a bit harder to fly. So that's why we have less fuel in this airplane. But that's an excellent question, Evan. Hi there, Jacinta. All right. Nice work, guys. All right, let's continue then. So now that we're cruising towards Tokyo, let's talk more about how the plane is able to fly without my hands on the controls and what autopilot can and can't do. Remember we talked about entering our flight plan into the computer. So here, so this creates a set of waypoints towards our destination. And the autopilot system of each airplane has different features. And some, like this A320, can navigate left and right all by itself to head towards the next waypoint. Okay? So the first thing that we were talking about, the heading control, this control has a few different modes. Now there's a navigation mode or a manage heading mode where the heading is chosen by the computer based on our waypoints. Okay? Or there is a specified heading mode where we can choose which compass direction for the plane to head towards. Okay? Most of our trip today, we're using the navigation mode. And this is the mode where the plane will steer itself towards the next waypoint along the way to Tokyo. So here we're just passing the waypoint Kilo Charlie Charlie, which is KCC. And then it's going to head towards Eiffels over here. Oh, well. And then once we head towards Eiffels, it's going to use the navigation mode on my autopilot system to turn towards the right, towards Kidax. Okay, so that is what the heading mode does for the autopilot. And how does the heading mode of the autopilot work? Well, the plane uses sensors to determine which direction the plane is currently flying. The sensor that measures the plane's heading is the magnetic compass, just like the compass that you would normally use if you were at Girl Scouts or at Boy Scouts and you went camping. You'd probably have a compass that pointed north all the time, towards magnetic north. That's the same sensor that is on this airplane to tell it so that it finds out which direction it is pointing towards and which direction it should be heading towards. Okay, so the actual position of the airplane uses GPS to find out where it is on the map. Now, if the next waypoint is to the left or to the right of the center of our airplane, then the autopilot system will send a message to the ailerons on the wings to roll the plane to the left or to the right. What are the ailerons? Let's have a look at that. All right. So the ailerons are positioned at the back of these large wings. Okay? And what they do is they make the plane roll to the left or roll towards the right. Okay? And when you roll towards the left, you're displacing the air so that the airflow makes the plane move towards the left. And if you are rolling towards the right, then the plane will move towards the right. So the heading setting on your autopilot will change your ailerons so that it rolls towards that next waypoint or moves towards the heading that you have specified. Let's see if there are any questions so far. Cool. Awesome. Feel free to ask questions, okay, as we go along. So now let's go to look at the next part of our autopilot system. All right. So the altitude setting, so we just talked about the heading setting and the heading mode. And you can see that right now the heading is blank because we're using a navigation mode. It's not a direction that we want it to head towards. We just make it follow whatever is on our waypoints in the map. But now let's talk about the altitude meter, which is probably the one that most pilots are going to use all the time as they are flying. So the altitude setting over here can help us change the aircraft's cruising altitude in response to instructions from air traffic controllers, bad weather, or other aircraft. And there are lots of rules and regulations about what heights a plane can fly. For example, there needs to be clear separation between different aircraft in the same area. And there are speed limits at different altitudes, just like how there are speed limits on our roads. And finally, there are rules for flying near clouds to reduce the time a plane spends in low visibility. You can't keep flying a plane in the middle of a cloud because it's just a very dangerous situation, right? So if there is a layer of cloud, then you would want to fly above it or below it so that you can have clear visibility. Now, just like the heading setting, the airplane uses sensors to detect how high it is currently flying. The sensor that measures the altitude is called the altimeter, which is what we talked about at the start, right? Let's have a look at the altimeter again. Over here. So here's the altimeter. Right now we are at the correct flight altitude. And how does the sensor work? The sensor takes the difference between the air pressure at the ground level and the current air pressure where the plane is flying to get an indication of the plane's current flying altitude. If it is too high or too low, then the computer will send signals to the plane's elevators, which are horizontal winglets on the tail. So let's have a look at the elevators on this plane. So the plane's elevators are over here, okay, right over there. It's the horizontal little winglets on the tail of the airplane. Okay, so if the plane is flying too low, then they will change shape so that. Yep. Okay. So they will change shape so that we angle the plane up and fly higher. If we are too high, then it will change shape to fly to make our plane angle down and fly lower. Now there is a catch for the altitude setting in Autopilot. adjusting the elevators alone is not always enough to counteract the forces of gravity. And let me tell you why. It's because of how a plane flies in the first place. So the wing of an aircraft generates lift. So the wings of an aircraft, so right over here, the main big wings, they generate lift by making sure that there's enough air flowing over and under the wings. Okay, and in order to do that, we need to increase our thrust. We need to increase the speed of the airplane. If the aircraft speed is too low, then the lift generated by the aircraft's wings may not be enough to counteract gravity, and this causes the plane to lose altitude. Okay? That is why in most planes, if you want the plane to climb using autopilot, you'll also need to control the thrust of the airplane so that you make sure there is enough speed to actually gain that altitude in that first place. However, if the speed of the plane is too high, this can also cause issues because the wings are not designed to withstand excessive speeds. If the plane moves too quickly, then there's a risk that the aircraft can break apart. Needless to say, autopilot is designed only for people who actually know how to fly the airplane, okay? Unlike myself. Let's see if there are any questions from the live audience right now. Where do you see fuel? That's over here on the bottom left-hand side now. Can you keep on going up? That's a great question. So the flight ceiling of the A320 is something around about 400,000 feet. No, sorry, 50,000 feet, something like that. It's but we are going to stay at this low level so that we can get a good view of Mount Fuji when we passed it. See if there's any other questions. Hey Kingsley, nice to see you online. Let's have a look at the fuel. Whoa, the fuel is running low, right? It looks like it's running low, but don't worry, we'll have plenty to reach Osaka. Okay, I mean Tokyo. Tricked you just then. Chris, this is the Microsoft Flight Simulator. So if you want to learn to fly an airplane, you can ask your parents to look for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Marcus is asking, can you crash into another plane or ground? Yes, you can absolutely crash into another plane or ground. But remember, this is not an action game. This is a simulator. So when you crash into something, it just cuts out and says you've crashed. So you don't see any fireballs or explosions or anything. Excellent question, Marcus. So how much tons of fuel left? 9% is going to be plenty of fuel for us to go from Osaka to Tokyo because when this is completely full, we can fly from Australia all the way to Japan. So 9% is going to be enough. What is AOA? AOA is called the angle of attack. That is an excellent question, Evan. So angle of attack is how your plane's flying attitude in relation to where it's traveling. Okay, if you imagine your angle, if you're heading towards this side, right? If you're flying sideways and you are heading sideways, then that is the normal angle of attack of an airplane, right? But when you're landing, you might be facing sideways or even facing up, but you're traveling downwards, all right? So that's increasing the angle of attack so that it is changing the way that it's flying. It's another tool to tell pilots what kind of position your airplane is at. That's an excellent question, Evan. I'm sure I'll do another video about angle of attack and how to fly an airplane in the future. All right, so most airplanes with autopilot will have the altitude and the heading settings. But not all aircraft will also control the thrust of the engine. Like I said before, if you are choosing the altitude of the airplane, you need to make sure that you have given it enough thrust to actually go to that height. But this particular airplane, we have something called auto thrust as well. So this Airbus has something called auto thrust, which also increases or decreases the thrust of the airplane to make sure that we have enough speed to make the altitudes that we are asking it to do, okay? Which is a very high-tech system. Right? Not all airplanes have that, which is why I can fly it, right? because I can't actually fly an airplane, right? So let's have a look at this. So autopilot in many planes is not designed to be a super smart system. So if a pilot enters a steep climbing angle and not enough speed, the aircraft may attempt to do whatever it is asked to do, even if it might stall and crash using those combination of speed and climbing angle and all that jazz. If you enter the wrong numbers in, you can crash the airplane. Okay, so likewise, the autopilot system doesn't communicate with other aircraft, and it doesn't notice things like buildings, mountains, trees, and other obstacles, which means that it is important for the pilot to always be alert to avoid crashing. Let's see if there are any more cool questions from the audience. What does KTS mean? KTS is knots. So the standard measurement of speed for an airplane is knots. Who chose the plane? I did, because I really like the A320. It's a very popular plane, but maybe in the future we can look at different planes as well. Let's see where we are at the moment. Oh my goodness. All right, here is can't believe how quickly time has flown. I'm going to switch off the weather, which is going to be an interesting task. So as you can see, with the live weather, we weren't able to see this before, but now that we have switched off the weather, we can see on our right is Mount Fuji. Let's take a quick look at Mount Fuji, and whoops, I've lost where I was at. All right. I was going to say, so I didn't realize that time was going to fly past so quickly. So here on the right, we are passing Mount Fuji. And I've been asked to descend to 17,000 feet, but that's okay. So Mount Fuji is a famous mountain in Japan. Whoops, I'll move it to the side. Actually, I'll make it so that it looks like you're looking at it from the window. How cool is that? So here is Mount Fuji from the window of our airplane. Can you see that? Can you see that? How cool is that? So Mount Fuji is the highest mountain peak in Japan. It is one of the 3 holy mountains of Japan. And also, according to UNESCO, Mount Fuji has been inspired artists and poets and has been the object of pilgrimage for centuries. UNESCO recognizes 25 sites of cultural interest within the Mount Fuji locality. It is a volcano, and geologists still consider it an active volcano because its last eruption was only 300 years ago in the 1700s. Okay, so it's a good thing that I'm in a simulator, because that's how I can turn off the clouds and see Mount Fuji, and also I can pause time. But we are going to continue flying, otherwise we won't reach Tokyo on time. How cool is that? So the age of Mount Fuji is disputed, but it seems to have formed during the past 2.6 million years on a base dating up from 65 million years ago. The first eruptions and the first peaks probably occurred some 600,000 years ago. The present-day mountain is a composite of 3 successive volcanoes. So that's why it's such a big such a big mountain, because it is made up of 3 different volcanoes. The bottom of the mountain today is Komitake, which was surmounted by Kofuji, which is Old Fuji, and now it is Shin Fuji, which is New Fuji. Okay. So make sure you take some photos of Fuji before we fly past Mount Fuji, and then we're going to be very close to Tokyo. See if we got any questions from the crowd. Yeah. So my air traffic controller is getting really cranky at me now. I need to descend my my altitude to 17,000 feet. Otherwise, I'm going to be too high for landing at Tokyo. We're starting our descent now. So let's take this opportunity to take a quick toilet break. Okay, I've turned off the seatbelt sign, and you are free to stretch your legs for another 10 minutes. Your in-flight meal today is a choice between teriyaki chicken and rice, or katsu curry pork with rice. Both served with cold soba noodles and miso soup. So if you're at home, however, then you're going to have to ask your parents to organize your in-flight meal for you. What is this? I have myself teriyaki chicken. No way. Let's have a look at this. That's it. Got myself some teriyaki chicken. Alright. So spend 10 minutes. Feel free to ask me any questions you want. Have a little toilet break. And you can watch me eat some teriyaki chicken. Oh no, I forgot my chopsticks. See if I got any other questions there. Oh, you're already eating. Well done. You guys have really already set out your flight meals. Okay. So 5,100 feet straight away. Okay. Okay. My air traffic controller is going a little bit crazy now. It's asking me to descend really quickly. I better do it. All right, so we are making our way to descend to Tokyo now. We'll just have a quick look to see. Whoa. All right. We are approaching Tokyo. There's Mount Fuji in the back there. Whee! What does VS mean? Good question, Marcus. VS stands for vertical speed. So if I am, if I want to make a gentle increase or decrease in height, then I'll set a very low VS, vertical speed. If I want to make a really sharp climb or a sharp decrease in altitude, then I'll increase my vertical speed. Excuse me. So negative 2,300, that means that I'm decreasing my altitude really quickly, because my my air traffic controller asked me to decrease my height. All right, over here we have Kestner Airfield. Kestner Airfield. And on the right hand side here, this is the Pacific Ocean. In front here, Tokyo. We're going to fly past Tokyo and then do a little loop of the city. and then we're going to land in Haneda Airport. See if there's any more questions. So HDGs, Alicia, good question. That stands for heading. And CRS, where did you see CRS? I'm gonna need to know what the contents. Oh, CRS up the top there. Honestly, a course. Of course, it is the course. Okay, heading is where we are heading, and CRS is course, where we're supposed to go. So they should be matching if we are heading in the right direction. That's a good question, Marcus. What would happen if I don't listen to the air traffic controller? Well, with this simulator, not much. If you don't listen to the air traffic controller in real life, you might lose your pilot's license, right? You might, or you might get a fine. You might get a fine by your airline might get fined if you're overspeeding or if you're not listening to the air traffic controller. So we are flight CA001, but they call us Charlie Alpha 001. Who wants to guess why they call us Charlie Alpha instead of CA? We have about 20 minutes before landing, Ying. Nelson is asking, what does VFR map mean in the VFR map? VFR stands for Visual Flight Rules. Okay, that means that you're flying based on your visuals. So VFR stands for Visual Flight Rules. Right now we're flying in IFR, which means Instrument Flight Rules, meaning that we're using our instruments to fly the airplane rather than using our eyes to fly the plane. Instrument flight rules is usually used when there's bad weather. So you use autopilot and you use radar and everything like that to fly the airplane. Visual flight rules is usually for when you're flying a small airplane and you have really clear skies, then you would use visual flight rules. That's a great question though. So, Charlie Alpha. Well, what is it? Is it a code name, like Nelson has asked? Or maybe Alicia's saying maybe there's multiple CAs? Well, those are both really good guesses. The reason is because whenever you say a letter over radio, sometimes it doesn't sound really clear. Like, for example, if I said CA over the radio, maybe the radio frequency might be bad, and they might hear, oh, did you say DK? Right? So instead of saying CA, they say Charlie Alpha, which means that it is the long form way of saying C is Charlie, and the long form way of saying A is Alpha. So this is called the phonetic alphabet. So you might hear people like in war movies or soldiers talking the Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. So these are all ways of saying different letters in a clearer way for the radio. Okay? So it's the phonetic alphabet. Okay. Is there a map of where the plane is currently? That's a good question, Ducky. Let's have a look. We are now flying over Tokyo. All right, so here, whoa. Look over down here. This is Tokyo. There's Tokyo Bridge over there. And on the right-hand side there, that is the airport that we're going to land in. So we're doing a loop of the, all the way up here, all the way up there. That's the airport, right? So we are doing a loop of the city now. And then look underneath. this is a very accurate representation of Tokyo. Where can I say? Oh, yeah, that's the National Diet Building popped up on a little note there. That's where the government meets. Where about there? There's a Cocoon Tower. What about that? Sompo Japan Building. Where are some other buildings around here? Oh, Tokyo Skytree. Here's a cool one. So the Tokyo Skytree is the world's second tallest building. All right. So this is a really tall tower, and it makes a lot of broadcasts for television channels and other kinds of signals. Okay. Tokyo Skytree, tallest tower, second tallest building in the world. So we are still making our descent to 3,000 feet, but now I'm going to decrease the speed of the airplane. And how am I going to do that? I'm going to increase the flaps. So remember how we said before, the flaps will change the shape of the wing. So watch this. I'm going to increase the flaps, and then this wing is going to transform like a transformer. So because we're getting into landing, I'm going to get you guys to have a look at the controls of my airplane as well. Alright, so I'm adding a level of flaps. You can see now that the front part of this plane has now moved forward, and it's making my wing a little bit more angled. And what that's going to do is it's going to slow down my airplane. And in order to slow down even more, I'm going to go into Autopilot System, and I'm going to change the speed. So right now, before, remember I said that the speed was in a managed mode for this Airbus? Well, now we're going to change it. Going to reduce the speed to 160 knots. 163 knots. That way we're going to be in a better speed for actually landing the airplane. So look out the passenger window here. Who's ever flown on the left side of an airplane like this and looked down the side and and see a city? Can you crash at the base of the tower? Yes, Kai, you can crash. But remember, this is not a action game, so when you crash, it will just cut out and say you've crashed. It doesn't actually, it doesn't have any fireballs and things like that. How much fuel do I have left? That's a good question. You know what? I have 7% fuel left. So still plenty of fuel. Let's have a look at our map. So here, we're just going to do a loop around Nati, and then we're going to, once we reach Resi and Rugby, then we know that we are on our final approach. When we hit Resi, we're going to engage a separate autopilot system called the approach mode, which makes it so that the autopilot system will gradually decrease its speed and its height, its altitude towards the runway. But in the last 200 feet, I still need to disengage the autopilot and land the plane myself. So we might still crash, alright, is what I'm trying to say. The autopilot system is not going to land the plane for us. We may still crash. And that will be a fun way to end the lesson, wouldn't it? So please, like and subscribe to the channel. If you haven't already, hit that like button and be sure to follow me for the next live video. Maybe I'll fly again, maybe I won't, okay? If I have enough likes on this video, I'll do another plane simulator, okay? Alright, so we're looping around Nati. Look at the cool farms down here around Tokyo. And here we can still see Mount Fuji in the background. Everybody wants me to crash. No, I can't crash. Think of all the families on board of this virtual aeroplane. Okay. Any other questions about autopilot before we land? So, like I said, we're going to use a whole new system to land the plane. We are going to use the approach mode to slowly glide our plane down towards the airport. Just rounding Natty now. What does it look like from inside the plane? This is what it looks like if you were in the pilot seat. So what does a pilot do when they are in autopilot mode? Well, they just sit there because you should be always checking all your instruments anyway, right? To make sure that everything is correct. And also, if they wanted to and if they had time, here's an iPad holder on the left-hand side, see? So they can put their iPad here and watch a Netflix video, okay? So what else is in the pilot seat over here? So for the Airbus, they're very famous for this side stick, which is what I'm using to control the aeroplane as well. Usually you have something called a yoke, which is like a steering wheel as in the middle of the aeroplane. In the front here is our autopilot system, and I've taught you all about the different parts of the autopilot system today. So hopefully, if you are ever stuck in a situation where you need to land a plane, then you're able to do that. All right, I'm going to turn on the instrument system, turn on the localizer. Whoa, something's not right. The plane was banking towards the right-hand side. So this plane is starting to do something a bit weird. Just like a real autopilot system, it is not flawless, right? Even though this is a simulator and it's supposed to really not have any excuse of being like, who wants the real weather? Do you want the real weather in Tokyo? It's a storm right now. I don't feel like landing in a storm. Next term class, I would double check the website for now. Okay, yeah, we're getting ready to land. We're getting ready to land. Okay, but before we do that, I'm going to add another level of flaps. And then I'm going to lower my landing gear. Alright, so do we want to land in clear skies or do we want to land in a storm? Yeah? Oh my goodness, everybody wants me to have a storm. Oh, okay. You know what? Just because you're asking so nicely. Live weather. Oh my goodness, how can I land in this? Oh no! Oh no, I can't land in this. Okay, alright. I can do this. This is going to be action-packed. Because I'm going to have to disengage the autopilot. Oh my god, I couldn't even see the runway. I couldn't even see the runway like this. This isn't fair. Okay. Alright. Let's be cool. Let's be cool. Localizer. No, 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 no. What's wrong? Alright. Alright, I can't really see. And it looks like there's a lot of wind. Oh, good. Yeah, that's right. This is noob mode. You see, in a real airplane, you don't see anything like this. This tells you what the safest landing path is. All right. Okay. If I'm not talking much, it's because I'm concentrating on trying not to crash. Alright, let's have a look at the right-hand side. Imagine seeing this in your final approach, right? It's like, oh, it's such a stormy day. Okay, so right now what's going on? Okay, localizer on. Alright, here's Tokyo. Look at that. Beautiful Tokyo down here. Okay, let's see if we can turn on our approach computer. Okay. Let's double check everything is ready. Alright, increase more flaps. Oh, is this the final flaps? Let's have a look. Yes, it is. Look, I'm flying sideways. There's too much wind. There's too much wind. Okay. Let's have a look. Alright, everybody put your seatbelts on. Everybody put your seatbelts on. Ah, there's Rainbow Bridge up the side. It's good. It's good last thing you see before you smash into Haneda Airport, right? I'm sorry, Ryan, I can't turn off the storm because everybody voted to have the storm. Whoa, look how beautiful Tokyo is out the side here. But I can't enjoy the view because I gotta land the plane. Now, there's Rainbow Bridge. Can anyone see Tokyo Tower? I don't know where Tokyo Tower is actually. Oh yeah, Central Station. Okay, so watch carefully because I'm going to have to disconnect the autopilot. You're going to hear a bunch of beeps when I disconnect the autopilot. It's to warn me that I am now in manual control of the airplane. Once you hear the beeps, I'm going to have to land the plane by myself. So here I'm gonna, once I hit this red button, is there an aeroplane right in front of me? I'm pretty sure, I think that's an airplane right there in front of me. 500 feet, 400. Oh no, the wind gust. Oh no. All right. Oh no. Ah. Ah, I can't land. There's an airplane there. I can't land. Can't land. I gotta increase the speed. There's an airplane on the runway, and nobody and tower didn't tell me. So going missed means that I have I've avoided the runway because there was another plane there. But you know what? Because we're here, we're having fun. I'm just going to see if I can land anyway. I can't read anybody's. Let's see if I can land here, right? No! We're bouncing. Oh, we crashed. Well, I hope everybody had fun because just like how everybody wanted, we tried to land in a storm, and this is what happens when a new pilot like myself tries to play a video game and land in a storm. Okay, I hope everybody enjoyed the lesson about autopilot, and I will see you again on the next one. Okay, take care. Bye bye.